On October 24, 1987, Diane Pikul walked into a quiet Hamptons property, and never walked out alive. But here's what makes this case so disturbing. Her husband was the one who called it in. He reported her missing like nothing had happened. Then gave a story that investigators say did not add up from the very beginning. What happened next shocked investigators. Because the truth was hiding inside a marriage that already looked like it was falling apart. And this wasn't just a disappearance. This was something much darker. Before everything turned into a crime scene, Diane Pikul had a life that looked like it was built on ambition. Born Diane Whitmore in Indiana, she grew up in a well-off family who believed she would settle into something predictable. But Diane wanted something else. She moved to New York after college, chasing success and independence. But reality hit fast. This was not a world that easily handed women power or comfort, especially in the earlier decades she was navigating. And like many stories of that era, stability often came through marriage. Diane married twice before meeting Joseph Pikul. Both marriages ended in divorce. Friends described her as charismatic, emotional, and unpredictable at times. Someone who lived loudly when life felt too quiet. Then came Joe Pikul. Joseph John Pikul worked in finance on Wall Street. A securities analyst with money, status, and confidence. On the surface, he looked like control and success. But behind closed doors, that image would fracture. They married after a short relationship, and soon had children together, Claudia and Blake. At first, things looked stable. But it did not stay that way for long. Neighbors and friends later described the Pikuls' home as tense. Arguments were not rare. They were constant. Reports described a pattern of control, conflict, and emotional volatility inside the marriage. Diane was not passive in the relationship either. She was known to push back, escalate arguments, and challenge Joe directly. But the dynamic became increasingly dangerous. Then came the turning point. Diane discovered something about Joe that changed everything. He had been secretly cross-dressing. According to accounts, this was the moment Diane decided she wanted out of the marriage for good. She began preparing for divorce. She also began working again, taking an entry-level publishing job to regain independence. But there was a problem. Money. And custody. And control. Joe reportedly refused to accept losing his children or paying support. And tensions escalated further. Then came October 24, 1987. Diane arrived at the couple's Amagansett property in the Hamptons. It was supposed to be a family weekend. At least that is what she believed. She never left alive. Investigators later determined she was attacked shortly after arriving. Joe Pikul was later accused of ambushing her outside the home. And in the final moments, he strangled her. Then everything went quiet. But the story was just beginning. After Diane vanished, Joe Pikul returned to Manhattan with the children. And almost immediately, questions began. Where was Diane? Why had she not returned? Why was there no clear explanation? Joe's response was that they had argued. He claimed Diane discovered condoms in the home and stormed out to meet another man. A story that sounded dramatic but inconsistent. Friends of Diane did not believe it. She would not disappear without warning. She would not abandon her job or her children. So a missing person report was filed. Then another. And police began looking closer at Joe. What investigators found next changed the direction of the case. Joe had reportedly purchased items at a hardware store including tape and rope. He also made an unexpected call asking friends to take his children for the night due to an emergency. Then came another disturbing detail. He allegedly visited his ex-wife and asked about burying something on her property. She refused. At that point, police no longer saw this as a simple disappearance. It looked like something staged. On October 29, 1987, Joseph Pikul was arrested. At first, he refused a strip search. When it finally happened, investigators discovered he was wearing women's lingerie. That detail alone shocked the room. But what came next was even more unsettling. Joe began to talk. He gave a confession that shifted between self-defense and accident. He claimed Diane came at him with a knife. That in a struggle, things escalated and she ended up dead. But investigators had evidence pointing in another direction. Witness statements. Purchases of rope and tape. The timeline of his movements. And the missing body being consistent with concealment rather than panic. Still, Joe's version tried to frame it as an unintended killing. But nothing about the preparation matched that claim. And then came the most chilling part of the entire case. Even after the confession and arrest, the legal system did something unexpected. Joe was still able to retain custody of his children temporarily while awaiting trial. The reasoning was simple but controversial. He had not yet been convicted. Public reaction was immediate outrage. How could an accused murderer remain in control of the children of the victim? While the criminal case continued, Joe Pikul made another shocking move. He remarried. His new wife, Mary Bain Pikul, supported him during custody proceedings and even became part of the legal strategy to strengthen his position with the children. But the pressure was building. Public opinion turned sharply against him. And then the criminal conviction finally came in 1989. Joe Pikul was found guilty of murdering Diane. But he never served a full sentence. Because while awaiting appeal, he was hospitalized. And on June 13, 1989, he died. Reports suggest complications related to AIDS. After his death, his conviction was vacated due to legal procedure requiring convictions to be cleared if the defendant dies during appeal. So in a strange legal twist, Joseph Pikul died without a standing conviction. But the outcome of the case never changed what happened to Diane. A mother. A wife. A woman caught in a violent and unraveling marriage that ended in her death.